Hi everyone, welcome to Glider Diaries. I'm Kimberly. Today we're going to be talking about where you should get sugar gliders from and where you should not get sugar gliders from. So if you're new here, I'm Kimberly. I'm just a sugar glider owner that that makes YouTube videos. I'm not an expert. I don't proclaim to be. So everything that I say today in this video is just my opinion and based off of the research that I have done on the topic, just like every other video that I post on my channel. So the only thing that really gives me any credentials is that I know a lot of people that have gliders. I have a really close friend that is a very reputable breeder. I've had gliders for about 6 years now, and I've been very involved in the sugar glider community. So take that for what you will. If you're watching this video and you've already gotten gliders and you've gotten them from one of the places that I'm going to mention that I don't recommend getting them from, I'm not judging you or your choices or your gliders. I'm not saying that your gliders are any less special or that you should have done things differently even necessarily. I'm just educating for people going forward because I'm a really big advocate that once we know better, we can do better. So I just want to arm everybody with the knowledge of what is out there, and then you can just make whatever choice you feel is best for you and your gliders. I do have 3 other gliders, so I'll introduce them really quickly, and then we'll get into the content of the video. So that was Raven that you saw at the beginning. This is Bruce. Bruce, can I say hi to the camera? There we go. Oh, hey, say hi. Oh my goodness. Wormy. So sugar gliders are marsupials, and they enjoy being in warm, dark places close to your heart. Hence why they scramble down my shirt. Okay, and then I have 2 others that don't really like to be in my shirt. That's Pika, and that is Belky. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about before we even get to listing off the different places where you could get gliders is I want to talk about scammers. Scammers, unfortunately, are extremely prevalent in the sugar glider industry, I guess, if you want to say that. So what people will do is they will get pictures of gliders, usually that the scammer doesn't even have possession of. They're just pictures that they got off of Instagram or Facebook or a website or something. They will advertise them as having them for sale, say all the right things, and then they will get you to give them money before you've ever actually laid eyes on the gliders in person. They will send you multiple pictures, even different ones that don't just appear in the ads. And then you will never get a glider and they will just take your money and run.
Stop it. Get some help.
To avoid that happening, you never want to buy a glider from someone who you have not had a phone conversation at the very least with, if not a video chat. Video chat would be much more ideal, because then you can see that they actually have possession of the gliders. You want to see multiple pictures and videos of the gliders that you're wanting to purchase, if not FaceTime. If they can't do FaceTime for some reason, you want to have videos or pictures that you specifically say, I want to see X, Y, or Z in this video. So for example, I want to see today's date on a piece of paper in the video of the background, and just tell people to say, you know, I'm just really afraid of getting scammed. I hope that's okay. If they're not accommodating to that, then they're not your breeder. A responsible breeder would be happy to do that. And I can't give you a lot of information about what to look out for with scammers, because then if scammers are watching this video, they'll know what to do. And just keep in the back of your mind that, like, don't trust people if you don't know them. The other thing before I get into the list, I know it's a lot, sorry, is I'm talking about the United States and Canada for the most part when I'm talking about all the different places you can get gliders. I know that people watch my videos from around the world, but my frame of reference is the Pacific Northwest and the United States and Canada. So I can't really speak to how people get gliders in other places because I don't have any personal experience with that. And I do know that around the world, there may be people that actually pull wild gliders from the wild, and that's how they would get their gliders. I would never advocate for that, nor recommend that. And I'm really not even going to touch on that because that's not my expertise. The first place that I would recommend never getting gliders from are mill breeders. So a mill breeder would be like a very, very, very large breeding company. And when you start talking about mill breeders, usually it's just about money. Like I said, I'm speaking in generalities. Think about puppy mills, ferret mills. Pretty much all of those things have a negative connotation for a reason. So I won't go super into that, but if you would say that where you're thinking about getting gliders from would qualify as a mill, if you look at them and they have, you know, hundreds or thousands of cages, I probably would not recommend getting from there. The other place that I would not recommend getting gliders from would be called backyard breeders. So a backyard breeder would be like anybody that's just out of their house that is not breeding with lineage, and basically just got a girl glider from here and a boy glider from here, and they're like, you know what, I'm just not gonna have the boy glider neutered, and they're just gonna have babies, and then as they have babies, I will sell them. Backyard breeders in the glider community kind of get a bad rap, and I'm not really coming from that angle. I'm really looking at it more from the perspective of that person may be just naively, innocently going about this. So a lot of people will do this like with dogs, right? For example, right? So they will get 2 dogs and those dogs have puppies, and they're like, you know what, as they have puppies, I'll just sell the puppies. No big deal, right? It's not like a malicious, evil thing to be a backyard breeder. I mean, it can be. You could be knowingly taking advantage of people and being, you know, neglectful with your glider ownership, but I don't think it's always that case. So I'm really not coming from that harsh of an angle. For you as somebody that's looking at getting gliders, the reasons why I would recommend staying away from a backyard breeder is 1, knowledge. The person that is backyard breeding is probably not the most knowledgeable on the most updated glider care, because they're just kind of winging it for the most part. The other reason is lineage. So lineage is going to be a constant theme that you'll hear in a lot of these scenarios. It could definitely be a huge issue with mill breeders as well. I think some mill breeders would say that they breed with lineage and some would not. I would say most probably don't, but I can't prove that. But backyard breeders almost never have lineage, because if they're going to have lineage, then they've done their research and then they're not just winging it anymore, right? They're actually focused on having a reputable, responsible breeding program. That's kind of the difference between somebody that is a backyard breeder and a responsible small breeder. Because you could have just 1 breeding pair and do it responsibly. So really quickly, what lineage is basically the glider's family tree. Originally, when the gliders were brought over into the United States to put into the pet trade, there were not that many gliders that were brought over. So therefore, the glider gene pool is very small, relatively. So you could actually buy a glider, and I know this sounds far-fetched and people are like, that never happens. Trust me, it happens. I've heard first-hand accounts of this happening. You buy a glider from Texas and you buy a glider from Idaho. Those 2 gliders, even though they are not even from the same breeder or from the same state, could have enough genetic makeup in common that they would produce genetic abnormalities in their babies, potentially. So the only way to avoid this is to actually have lineage. So lineage is keeping track of a glider's family tree from birth. So there's no way to get lineage after you've already gotten a glider. I hope I haven't lost you. So let's back up a little bit. Lineage is not the same as like a pedigree. It's saying, I know who this glider, I know who their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, I know what their family tree is for so many generations. So I can compare this glider's family tree to this glider's family tree, and I can guarantee that they do not have enough genetics in common to potentially produce birth defects or genetic abnormalities in their offspring. When I talk about genetic abnormalities, I'll show some pictures and videos here. If you don't want to see that, you might want, I'll put a timestamp where you can skip forward because they are kind of hard to watch. So I'm going to start that now. So gliders can have, they call the wiggles, where they're just constantly wobbling around. They can have seizures, they can have blindness, they can have birth defects for like different limbs and things like that. So it's not something that you should just treat lightly. Backyard breeders do not have lineage because if they did, they would be considered a small, responsible breeder. Does that make sense? So a backyard breeder oftentimes is even breeding or producing gliders that are not just distant relatives, they are very close relatives. So what oftentimes happens is somebody gets a glider or 2 gliders or 3 gliders or whatever from somebody that's not a responsible breeder. So they're not giving you all the information. And then you end up having babies with those gliders. Now you have, a bunch of gliders, and then some of those gliders are related, obviously, because they had babies. And then those babies have babies with the mom or the dad or with each other. And then that becomes their small breeding program that they are then selling gliders to people. Those gliders are absolutely inbred. You cannot have a glider that has a baby with its mom or its sibling and not have them be inbred. That would be a backyard breeder, and I would absolutely recommend staying away from backyard breeders for that reason. Let's take a break from that heavy topic. And I'm gonna just take a second to talk about my merch and my other family's YouTube channel. So my family has produced a YouTube channel called the Dalton Dom Show. I'll put the links to that YouTube channel in the description box. So if you want to support us there, we're making some fun vlog content. It's not really sugar glider related. The gliders might appear in it sometimes, but for the most part, it's just focused on our family of 4. And I also have merch. If you would like to support the channel in some way and you want to get some cute sugar glider merch, please check out that link in the description box. Okay, back to the content. Also, you can find gliders at kiosks, malls, and pet shops. Now, typically, I have not really heard of any responsible lineage breeders selling at these places, so there may be exceptions to the rule that I'm not aware of, but for the most part, those places are notorious for selling unlineaged backyard or mill breeder gliders. Now, again, I just want to say, gliders that you get that are not lineaged or they're not sold from the right breeder does not mean that the glider themselves is like a less than glider. What I'm trying to educate you on is the dark side of the glider breeding world. And I personally have a belief that you should not support somebody that's doing something unethically because that only fuels that industry, right? I also understand that a lot of people agree with that in principle, maybe, but in practice, they want to rescue gliders that were produced in these conditions, and so they buy them. That is each person's own prerogative. What I will say is that the better way, in my opinion, to do that would be to report. If you find that somebody's breeding unethically, report them and or rehome them, get the glider, but don't pay money for them, because all that's doing is then fueling that person to go, well, it worked out, I made money, so I'm going to do it again. So as much as I would want to say, if you see any glider in need, just get them at no matter what the cost, I personally don't think that really helps the big picture problem. It does help that individual glider, and if you have a personal conviction that you feel like, that's worth it to me, I'm not going to judge you for that. But I do think we need to go into it with our eyes wide open on what's actually happening and not be able to be deceived by these different people that are going to give you false information on care and false information on if the glider is even neutered or not, false information on what it's like to handle a glider. There's just a lot of false information that also kind of tends to be wrapped up and goes along with these unethical breeding practices. If you get gliders from a kiosk, a mall, a flea market, a pet shop, typically those gliders are all from backyard breeders or mills. And also, you'll find that in most of these cases, you're not getting up-to-date information or getting outright lied to about glider care. I have so many videos on glider care, so I'm not going to go into that, but just know that that is like a package deal typically. You get a unlineaged, possibly inbred, most likely inbred glider, plus a lot of wrong information mixed in, which then leads to the next category of places you could get gliders from, and that is rehomes. So a lot of times what happens is people purchase gliders impulsively, or with just the wrong information given to them. Then they realize, oh wait, this is a lot bigger commitment than I thought it was, or I thought I was getting that sweet snuggly one that was jumping from person to person and going down their shirt, but this one's super angry and like afraid of people. What's going on? I need to rehome this glider. So a lot of times people will rehome gliders for that situation. Not always. Obviously, there's lots of reasons why somebody might be rehoming a glider. There could be medical issues that the individuals have, just, or like life changes, financial hardships that they've fallen on, and they're just trying to give the gliders a better life. So oftentimes you will find gliders that need to be rehomed or like adopted out from a house that never really intended to get rid of them or have them go anywhere else, but circumstances are such that they now are in that place where they need a new home. So that will be considered a rescue or a rehome situation. Editing Kimberly here. See, I'm editing the video that you're watching. And I just wanted to clarify that when I'm talking about rescues and rehomes in this video, I was in the mindset of what is most common in my area, which is individual person to individual person. I was not really talking about rescue organizations, shelters, things like that. And a lot of places are really good about that. My town specifically does not have anything like that. So I've never been able to actually go and visit one of those places or get detailed research about that. But keep in mind that when I talk about getting improper information from the person that you're rehoming the glider from, I'm talking about an individual to individual, not a rescue organization. So as I will explain in this, I do think that rehomes and rescues can be a great thing. So I think what I'm going to do is actually do a live on my YouTube channel and we discuss this topic, because this is a really big controversial topic. And really, I'm gearing this video towards people that are just looking into getting gliders. They're really have not done a lot of research. And so I'm really coming from that place, but there's a lot of different angles that we could be discussing here. So I hope that clarifies that a little bit. A rescue situation would be if the living conditions of the glider are just abhorrent, and they're maybe malnourished, they're having medical issues because of it, and you're like, I just need to get this glider out of here. This person does not know what they're doing necessarily, how negligent they're being, but this glider is suffering, I need to get them. That would be considered a rescue. A rehome would be basically you're still getting a glider from somebody else's home that did not maybe breed that glider in their home, but they're now needing to give the glider to, or sell the glider to somebody else because of their situation. But the glider was not neglected in any way. Haven't been neglected or abused or given poor treatment. They just did, maybe the owner just had a different set of life circumstances, or they didn't understand what they were getting into when they got the gliders. So a rehome situation is another place that you can get gliders. Now, all of these different places that I've talked about for the whole video, you need to also keep in mind that if somebody says that that glider is neutered, if the boy is neutered, or they're telling you that these gliders that you're getting are both girls, you need to take that with a huge grain of salt. I don't know how many people I've had reach out to me personally that have said, I was told that these gliders were both girls, or I was told that this glider is a boy, and now these gliders that I got as a rescue or a rehome situation are pregnant. Now keep in mind, gliders can keep a joey called in stasis for up to a year. So if a female and a male glider have been together, an unneutered male glider have been together, that male glider could have gotten the female glider pregnant really at any time. And then even if they were separated, that female can still become pregnant a year from when they were separated. So there's a lot of complexity there and a lot of unknown there. And if you're just finding somebody off of Facebook or Craigslist, you really can't take them at their word. You have to know going in, okay, I may not be getting all of the truth here. And am I willing to take on that responsibility if that's the case? Go into it with your eyes open. I would not recommend getting gliders off of Facebook or Craigslist or a rehome situation if the only reason why you're wanting to do that is to get a good deal. I'm going to say that again. I'm not saying that you should never get a rehomed glider. I actually think that that's a very noble thing to do. I did that with Pika. One of my gliders is rehomed because the person that had her was afraid that she might be having medical and behavioral issues that she was not prepared to deal with. And so she rehomed her to me. So I'm not in any way saying that rehoming is not a good thing to do. Rehoming because you're wanting to do a charitable kind thing for that glider is totally fine. Rehoming because you want to get a good deal on a glider, I don't think is a good idea. And here's why. Gliders that come from a rehome situation oftentimes are inbred, oftentimes have medical issues that you're not aware of, such as needing to be neutered or already being pregnant. You don't know what kind of situation they've been in even before this home you're getting them from. They could have bounced around and they could be malnourished. And they definitely need a vet checkup right away. And they might need a round of treatment at a vet. So like when I first got Pika, I took her to the vet a ton because she had some issues that we needed to work through. You know, she, from what I know, from what I understand, is not inbred because I did get her lineage before I got her because the person that I rehomed her from had her lineage, but she still had plenty of medical issues. She's been my most expensive glider and I did not pay anything for her. Now, usually when somebody is rehoming a glider, they do charge a fee, and that's reasonable because you don't want to just give someone a glider for free unless you know them. It kind of filters out the people that are serious about taking care of this glider and the people that are just like, oh, sure, free, gimme.
Ooh, piece of candy.
This person knew me, knew my channel. That's why she reached out to me, and that's why she felt comfortable rehoming without charging me. And she also knew that this glider was going to need a lot of vet care. So therefore, I was already going to be paying quite a bit of money with that. That's kind of the other situation that you can get gliders from, would be a rehome or rescue situation. Lastly, a small, reputable, lineaged breeder. Unfortunately, I cannot say, oh, hey, click on this link below and you're going to be able to get a glider from this specific person, because I have people watching this from around the world. And even if you are in the United States or in Canada, that doesn't mean that you're anywhere close to where I am or where the breeders that I personally know are. On my channel, I really take the responsibility of recommending somebody or something to you guys very seriously. I don't feel comfortable recommending breeders that I have not personally met or worked with. And then even the breeder that I got my first round of gliders from, they're not a bad breeder, but I would not recommend them because I feel like since then I have found an even better caliber of breeder, if that makes sense. So I'm like super, super, super picky about who I recommend as breeder. So I will put like 3 breeders in the description box. These are people that I have personally met, interacted with on multiple occasions, and I trust personally, but that's it. And that really limits who could actually get gliders from these people, because they're 3 very small breeding programs. They're all in Western Canada or the Pacific Northwest. So that really limits that. But what I will say is, if you're looking for a breeder, getting on any of the Sugar Glider Facebook groups and asking for personal recommendations, not, hey, are you a breeder? But, hey, do you have an experience getting gliders from somebody that you just adore? And really doing a lot of research. So don't be over anxious to find a breeder and get gliders right away. Like, be willing to wait and vet the people that you're thinking about getting gliders from. So personal recommendations, being able to go and actually see the breeding program, meet the people, handle their gliders, really interact that way is going to be the best way to go about it. Second best way would be to be able to get a personal recommendation and have FaceTime, video chats, pictures, videos, and lots of conversation about why they breed, what's their breeding program like, what diet do they feed. This requires you, as somebody that's interested in getting gliders, to do your research so that when they tell you something, you can go, I don't know if I really agree with that, or that goes against what I've also heard from other people that I trust. So you really have to go into it with some reservation and some concern in mind. So don't just be over eager to get gliders from the first breeder that you find. So a few things that these small breeders should be telling you is to feed a staple. If they're not telling you to feed a staple diet that's been approved, then that's a red flag. I have another video on diets, what diet I feed, and I do talk about staple diets in that video. So if you're unfamiliar with that term, check that video out. They should also be advocating that you get cages and toys and cage sets from safe, reputable people. I'm going to link a couple other videos here that I've done that talk about different concerns with that, toy safety. If they're saying, hey, go ahead and just buy whatever cage sets you can find on Google or Amazon or even Etsy, that's a red flag, because any breeder that's been in the industry for long enough knows that there actually have been lots of injuries and deaths from different safe sugar glider items that could have easily been prevented if the person had just known that that was not something they should buy from. If they seem like really eager to sell this glider to you, even though you have not talked about what you are willing to provide the glider, that's also a little bit of a red flag. They should be asking you questions and vetting you. Some breeders even will give like a questionnaire of, okay, so what kind of housing do you have? Do you have any other animals? Like all these different questions so that they can know how to best draw alongside you. So if they're not asking you questions, that's also a red flag. And lastly, what I'll talk about is if they're not providing you support from here on out, if they're saying, I'm going to give you this glider, but don't contact me, don't ask me questions, I don't want to mentor you in any way, that would be a red flag. A good, small, responsible breeder should be wanting to offer you mentorship and be able to be there to answer your questions because they care about these babies that they're producing and trusting somebody else to be responsible for. Okay, I know that was a lot of information. I hope that made sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to like and subscribe, check out my merch, and I will be seeing you soon. Bye. Dom, I can hear you crinkling in the background. Bruce. Here we go. Oh, my back. Giving, you buy a glider from Texas and you